When a studio wants to deliver a satisfying two-part sci-fi or fantasy movie, there are often obstacles standing in the way. In some cases, a movie studio chooses to split up one giant story into two parts, and in these cases, the directors have to ensure both movies stand on their own. This has been true with book adaptations, as the Harry Potter franchise, Twilight, and The Hunger Games all split up the last books in those series into two movies. The most important thing that these two-part releases have to do is make each movie its own self-contained story. Both releases need to have a beginning, middle, and end that satisfyingly tell that story, so it stands on its own, while also teasing the next movie in the series. There should be a cliffhanger, but it shouldn't just look like one long movie split down the middle. That worked perfectly for one Disney property that took a decade-long story and delivered a pitch-perfect two-part finale. Disney acquired a lot of major properties over the 21st century. From Star Wars and Pixar to its acquisitions from Fox, the movie studio has plenty of big-budget movies to play with. However, of all those properties, the one that became its most valuable for its box office take was the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Starting with Iron Man in 2008 and moving on through the Avengers team-up movies, the MCU built a massive shared universe. That all paid off with the best two-part sci-fi saga in movie history with Avengers, Infinity War and Avengers, Endgame. The MCU hit its greatest heights with Infinity War and Endgame. The first 10 years of the MCU led to Avengers, Infinity War and Avengers, Endgame. From the introduction of the big three Avengers, Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor, and their first two movies together, to the splintering of the team in Captain America, Civil War, the story led to the ultimate moment when Thanos attacked Earth. This was large-scale world-building at its best, and by the time this two-part series arrived, the heroes were ingrained in the public consciousness. Iron Man and Captain America became the most popular characters in the MCU, and when they broke apart after Civil War, it created a situation where Earth was at its most vulnerable. Since Earth's mightiest heroes were splintered, and many were on the run from law enforcement for refusing to sign the Sokovia Accords, Thanos has an easier time attacking Earth and wiping out half of all life in the universe. It was a masterful setup that resulted in the most shocking cliffhanger imaginable. That is what made this two-part sci-fi epic so impactful. The heroes not only have to stop Thanos and somehow reverse his actions, but they also have to come back together again as a team to do so. The second part of this story allowed Marvel to offer everything necessary to deliver an emotionally satisfying conclusion. From Captain America lifting Mjolnir and saying, "Avengers assemble," to Iron Man's sacrifice and death to save the world, everything works perfectly to tie up this massive story. It doesn't get better than the cast of Infinity War and Endgame. Disney built up the characters perfectly over the decade leading into Avengers, Infinity War and Avengers, Endgame. That wouldn't have been possible without the perfect casting throughout the franchise. What made this two-part sci-fi epic so great was that Disney brought back all the major actors from the previous movies to create one of the biggest star-studded movies of all time with the second part of this story. Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans anchored the two films as Iron Man and Captain America. They became so popular over the previous 10 years that their storylines helped carry Avengers, Endgame to great heights. Add in the other core Avengers members, including Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye, Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, and Mark Ruffalo as Hulk, and this was a huge cast. What was even more impressive was that the two movies brought in every other character, big and small. This cast includes Oscar winners Brie Larson, Captain Marvel, Gwyneth Paltrow, Pepper Potts, Tilda Swinton, the Ancient One, and Benicio del Toro, the Collector. Fan favorites like Tom Holland, Spider-Man, Paul Rudd, Ant-Man, and Chadwick Boseman, Black Panther, among others, filled out one of the best casts in history. Avengers, Endgame shattered box office records, making $2.8 billion and moving into first place as the highest-grossing movie of all time. Avatar soon passed it during its re-release, and Endgame remains in second place, ahead of Avatar, The Way of Water. With Avengers, Endgame being re-released with extra footage in September, that could change again. Avengers, Doomsday and Avengers, Secret Wars could replicate Marvel's success. December 2026 sees the next major Disney MCU crossover release with Avengers, Doomsday, with Avengers, Secret Wars coming 1 year later. These two movies could match the success of Avengers, Infinity War and Avengers, Endgame. While the MCU has experienced a downturn in box office success since Endgame, people have still turned out for special events. This happened when Deadpool met Wolverine in Deadpool and Wolverine, and when Spider-Man, No Way Home brought in Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. Avengers, Doomsday will do what both of those movies did. Wolverine should be back, as should Deadpool, in this next two-part sci-fi series. Not only that, but the interest that Maguire and Garfield brought to No Way Home should be bigger in Doomsday, when the classic Fox X-Men actors return. Patrick Stewart, Professor X, Ian McKellen, Magneto, and James Marsden, Cyclops, lead the way with several other classic X-Men actors showing up in the MCU as well. Avengers, Doomsday could also end with an even bigger cataclysmic event than Avengers, Infinity War, which could open up Avengers, Secret Wars for a monster box office take as Marvel shows what is next for its universe. As a reboot for the MCU, these are extremely important movies, and the X-Men could bring the emotional weight Captain America and Iron Man did, which could help bring the MCU back into the spotlight again.